Everyone, welcome to the Institute for Globalization Studies, home of the BA in Globalization Studies and International Relations, the GLI BA. I'm Sophie Reynard-Leroy, the director of the Institute, and I'm very pleased to host this special event today, introducing the new GLI MA Focus. As of next fall, in 2021, our Institute is offering a Competence in Globalization, which is a new micro-credential that you can obtain through GLI in order to make your master's degree more marketable. Yes, you can now add a GLI focus to your MA degree at SBU. This opportunity is offered by 6 departments of the College of Arts and Sciences, and we only hope to expand it to many more departments moving forward. Those pioneer programs are the MA in Africana Studies, the MA in Contemporary Asian and Asian American Studies, the MA in English, the respective MAs in French and Italian from the Department of European Languages, Literatures and Cultures, the MA in Hispanic Languages and Literature, and the MA in History. So on this occasion of the launching of the GLI micro-credential at the graduate level, we have invited a trio of brilliant Stony Brook University alumni who graduated, in their case with a BA from 3 of the programs administered by the departments I've just listed, to showcase how these disciplines, even when pursued at the graduate level, can lead to an international career and can be better enhanced when paired with a global focus right from the start. Our 3 alumni today had to make the choice to pivot from a BA in Asian and Asian American Studies or Africana Studies or History to the global scene by seizing existing opportunities that our campus offers, such as study abroad and prestigious international fellowships such as Fulbright or Gilman that gave them the experiential edge they needed to transition to international graduate programs outside Stony Brook University. With our new BA in GLI, launched last fall in 2020, doing very well, and now this upcoming GLI micro-credential at the master's degree level, we're trying to make this connection to the global possible at Stony Brook University by capitalizing on these experiential opportunities that they may seize in the course of their studies at Stony Brook, and officializing them with a point-based certificate, which the GLI micro-credential is. So please don't hesitate to contact us with any questions you may have on how to transition from a BA to graduate studies that prepare you for a global career right here at Stony Brook. But at GLI, we couldn't do this without the full collaboration of 3 very important institutions: the Career Center, External Scholarships and Fellowships Advising, and Study Abroad. So I'm going to give the floor very briefly to their representatives, and they will highlight for you what it is they can help you with. I'll first give the floor to Dr. Alfreda James, who co-organized the event with me. She is the Assistant Director of Graduate Services at the Career Center, and she'll talk to you about the services they offer in experiential education. Alfreda.
Great, thank you very much for that kind introduction. And I'm going to use one of your phrases, and that is connecting to the global. I want all of you to know that you can connect to global opportunities within the state of New York and within the curriculum. The first thing that you'll see here are 3 images on this screen: the Suffolk County Human Rights Commission, the New York City Commission on Human Rights, and SUNY Coyle Global Commons Virtual Study Abroad. Here are 3 examples of either an agency at the state level or in the city level that can provide a global experience for you because of the nature of work that goes on in those offices. So I want you to think about look at the human rights organizations that exist in state agencies. This is an example of you getting global connection while you are still a student at the university. Depending on your adventure, your interest in travel, you might want to pursue virtual study abroad. This is a new option that is offered through SUNY. Again, you are collecting experience long before you graduate by doing something like this. Now, I also know that a lot of you are interested in non-governmental organizations. And you should know that right now on Handshake, there is a non-governmental organization called the Robert Jackson Center, and it is based in New York. And they are interested in peace and strategic negotiation in Africa, Asia, as well as Latin America. And if you take a look at the topics that they consider, you will see that there's a connection between what they do and the work that they need to research and the things that you're studying. So my whole point in talking to you is that there are opportunities for experience that you can find locally without even having to go abroad that can still connect you to global. I look forward to seeing some of you in my drop-ins on Mondays, and I will now turn the program back over to Sophie. I will stop my screen share.
Thank you very much, Alfreda. So I encourage all our students listening to us to go and visit Alfreda and the career centers in general. They're terrific partners, especially of GLI and anything global. I now give the floor to Jen Green. Most of you are very familiar with Jen Green's personality and impact on our campus. Jen is the External Scholarships and Fellowships Advisor, and she will talk to you about the Fulbright, the Gilman Fellowship, and others fellowship that would be of interest to everybody here who is contemplating a career, an international career. She'll also talk to you about the advantages of using study abroad, because as you may know, she represented study abroad for many years before this position with with the fellowships at Stony Brook. So please, Jen, talk to us about all these opportunities and the two students who are here in the panel and who made the best use of those.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, lovely introduction. I love it. My name is Jen Green, and Sophie, big news. I'm actually Director for Fellowships Advising and Professional Development now, so that's exciting.
Oh, I went and checked your title just a few minutes ago, so this needs to be updated. Yes,
I will get on that. And so yeah, I work with nationally competitive and prestigious awards to do really exciting things. So you are competing against students from across the country, but the really amazing thing is Stony Brook students are very competitive. In fact, two of my previous recipients, well, one is a current recipient of the Fulbright. He'll be introducing himself shortly, and one of my previous recipients of the Fulbright, and they both received the Gilman Fellowship. So the three types of awards that you might be the most interested in would be awards for undergraduate study abroad. So if you want to do a study abroad program while you're an undergraduate, there's several options actually. And you can find more information about that. Actually on the study abroad website, they have all the things. And then if it's something where you need to be working with me as well, they have it listed there. So stonybrook.edu/study abroad is an amazing resource. I might be preempting someone who's about to talk about that. There is the Fulbright US Student Program, which you do have to have a bachelor's by the time your grant would start, your proposed grant, but it's an amazing opportunity. Your first chance to apply is as a graduating senior. So for any of you in the room who are juniors, it's go time for Fulbright. Fulbright has awards to teach English overseas, very select few to get a one-year master's overseas, and all kinds of opportunities to do research overseas, like mentored research with a faculty member at a university abroad. And you get to choose your research mentor. And, when I say research, I mean that kind of loosely. We're talking research and creative activity, whatever that looks like in your field. So it's all disciplines for any of the 3 awards. And really, I always tell students, I defy you to find something that you can't do with Fulbright overseas, but you do have to be getting ready to graduate when you apply for that. If there's folks who are seniors in the room, you could still get on board with Fulbright. You would just you wouldn't be going abroad next academic year. Everybody who's getting ready to apply for Fulbright is applying for 2022-23. But especially juniors, get in touch. And the first way and best way to learn more about what I do is to go to stonybrook.edu/fellowships, particularly if you're interested in Fulbright. Like I said, the Study Abroad Awards, they tend to keep more of that information on their website. And there's both, nationally competitive ones and ones that are Stony Brook and SUNY specific. So, but for the Fulbright, that's all me all the time. I'm going to put my
Yes, I was going to offer that you put your email address, your contact information in the chat room for everyone. And same with Alfreda, if you don't mind.
All right, I'm putting this in here right now. And then I'm going to put my email, fellowships@stonybrook.edu. And a third type of award that y'all might be interested in are the diplomatic fellowships. But first step to learning more about any of these is to come to an information session. So I got my website in the chat box where you can see the calendar of upcoming information sessions. There are a lot of them coming up on Fulbright. The diplomatic fellowships you all may have heard about. These are for students who have both academic merit and financial need, and they help to pay for a master's in something related to international studies, and you get a guaranteed job in the U.S. Foreign Service when you're done with that master's. So like,
Wow.
Like a funded master's and a job all in one, and 2 really sweet internships. One is on Capitol Hill and the other is at an overseas embassy. So I've had students who received those who were in, Accra, Ghana. I had a student in Bishkek, Kyrgyzstan, Brussels, Belgium, so truly phenomenal opportunities. So my big areas of focus that will probably be interesting to you are the Fulbright, like I said, research or teaching overseas, immediately following graduation if you apply successfully, and these diplomatic fellowships. And you can find out more information about all of those out on my website. And again, if you're interested in awards specifically to study abroad during undergrad, that's cool too. There's all kinds of good stuff. And I'll put, who's here from study abroad? May I ask? Oh, I don't hear. I'll put their website in here too.
Yes, would you? Because we agreed that you would represent them, Jen.
Oh yeah.
Yes, because
who's representing study abroad?
Remember, I said because you know them very, very well.
I sure do. Okay, so because they've taken on, they do more of the awards for undergraduate study abroad, and then I'm really buckling down on the Fulbright and the diplomatic fellowships. Let's see, Stony Brook.edu/study abroad, and Stony Brook has all kinds of amazing study abroad programs for you. And I like to, so I don't work for them anymore. You'd be talking to other folks that it's all out on their website, but our programs are really affordable. We're hoping to get everything up and running again very, very soon. I'm not exactly sure what their timeline is, but again, that should be out on the website that I just put in the chat box. But the other thing is too, we hope that you have the chance to do an undergraduate study abroad, but it's not necessarily a prerequisite to these awards like Fulbright and the diplomatic fellowships that come later. So, it's great if you have it, but a lot of times folks pursue the diplomatic fellowships and the Fulbright, maybe because, undergraduate study abroad wasn't an option for you. However it works out, we want to get you overseas, whether it's during your undergraduate career or following. So lots of different options. So yes, as Alfred mentioned, it can be a stepping stone. It doesn't have to be. I don't want anybody limiting themselves and thinking, oh, I can't apply for a Fulbright to be abroad once I graduate unless I did an undergraduate study abroad experience. Students have lots of different paths to, getting to these next steps. So Sophie, am I missing anything? Is there anything else?
No, you're not missing anything.
Okay.
I don't believe you are. And in any case, people will contact you to ask all the questions they may have, or perhaps during the general Q&A at the very end of the program. And feel free, anyone who's listening, to ask a more specific question to any of our attendees here. I also want to tell you that I can only concur with what Jen and Alfreda are saying. And in the case of the GLI BA, the study abroad is built in. It's either study abroad or an internship. So it's part of the degree. And in the case of the new GLI MA focus that we are launching, if you happen to do a study abroad or an internship, you can capitalize on that by earning points towards the focus. So the focus is not something that is really additional work to you. In many instances, if you are globally inclined, whatever you've done in the course of your studies is already a step forward, and it might very well count for the GLI MA focus, and that's why we think they pair very well with some of the programs existing on campus. So it's now time for me to introduce our panelists. So I'll start with Ross Medico, who is our older alumni of the three, in the sense that he graduated from Stony Brook in 2013 with a BA, magna cum laude, in political science and history. Ross is currently the managing editor and senior researcher at the Korea Data and History Initiatives at Johns Hopkins School of Advanced International Studies. So we're very proud of him. And since he's left Stony Brook, he co-founded this group in 2019 while completing an MA at SAIS in conflict management and international economics. In his graduate career, Ross completed 2 internships through the U.S. Department of State at the Korea Desk, DPRK unit, and in the Seoul Public Diplomacy section. Prior to attending graduate school, he worked on legislative issues for the National Association of Letter Carriers, NALC, and was awarded a Fulbright grant to teach in Yilan County in Taiwan, and he taught English in South Korea. He also took full advantage of SBU's study abroad programs, studying in Oslo, Norway as a Gilman Scholar, and in St. Petersburg, Russia, and in Wuhan, China. Then we have Metasim Mahfouz, who is completing her Juris Doctor degree at Albany Law School right now, where she's the first woman of color elected to serve as executive president of the Student Bar Association. She also served as president of the Muslim Law Students Association, student ambassador for Albany Law School, and competition chair for 3 moot court competitions. Metasim hopes to serve as an international human rights lawyer. She graduated from Stony Brook with a BA magna cum laude in Asian and Asian American Studies in 2015, with concentrations in society and contemporary issues and Korean language and literature. Her capstone senior project for the annual undergraduate and research activities, Eureka Symposium, focused on how racism in mainstream America deterred political participation among Asian American. I must say it is very timely, and I'm sure people might want to ask you a question about this, Metasim. And finally, Usoshi Jean-Philippe II, who studied in China as a Gilman Scholar and currently is completing his 2nd year as an English teaching instructor in Taiwan through the Fulbright program. In this position, Usoshi educates his Taiwanese students about the diverse faces and cultures of American society. As a Haitian American, he consistently introduces some of the cultural traditions, language, etc., that he grew up with during his childhood to his students, firmly believing in the importance of educating Taiwanese youth about diverse cultures, traditions, and ethnicities. I quote Usoshi, "Every time a Black person travels, an opportunity is created to smash negative stereotypes and leave a positive, lasting impression." End of quote. Usoshi graduated from SBU with a BA cum laude, double majoring in Africana Studies and Asian American Studies in 2018. Welcome, all three of you, Stony Brook alumni. We're very proud of you and very happy to have you here. Thank you for participating. So I'll start asking the questions that I want to ask you all first. Let's get right in the heart of things, and please tell me one at a turn what you currently do that is global in scope. Shall I start with Russ?
Sure, and thank you again for having me. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, very well, thank you.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, thank you so much for having all of us. I mean, we're Seawolves, and we want to help other Seawolves whenever we can. But yeah, as you said, I currently work for the Korea Data and History Initiative, which I co-founded here at Johns Hopkins SAIS a few years ago while I was a graduate student there. And basically what I do is when I as a graduate student, as a graduate intern for like the North Korea office and the State Department, and at the same time being a graduate student on Massachusetts Avenue of Washington, D.C., which is where all the think tanks are studying North Korea. It was amazing to see the disconnect at the time of the research that was being done and the policies that were happening at the same time, the negotiations. I was there in the middle of 2018 when all these summits were happening and leadership summits and right behind the scenes. And basically a classmate and I were like, well, there definitely needs to be a better bridge of information going between the research, academic communities and the policymaking communities. So we basically try to develop a platform for research where basically we create databases that mostly have to do with North Korea, some with South Korea as well. And then also contextualizing a lot of this data with the history that we do know, because there's a lot of missing information that people perceive about North Korea, and it's a very hard place to study, especially when outsiders aren't really allowed in. So, but there is a history that we do know, and we go a lot into the primary sources and try to connect the dots and try to build a fuller picture that would help policymakers make informed decisions and when they go into their negotiations and all that. So that's basically what we've been trying to build over these last few years, and we officially launched our website, kdhi.org, just last month. And we're constantly building research tools, learned how to code over the last few years to like build this stuff, and we're writing research and sending it to our friends in DC and trying to expand our scope so people who are not just, like right now we're definitely part of like a Korea circle, I guess, of like where everyone's like doing research about Korea or involved in policymaking, but we're trying to expand it so people who don't know as much about Korea, want to learn more about the history and the politics, can learn more about it and get involved in that.
It's very impressive that you became an entrepreneur in this process.
Yeah, and to that effect, though, like it was honestly we felt there was a missing void there. For instance, there are a lot of think tanks that have to do with North Korea and all that kind of stuff, but the studies are a lot to do with gaining access to $1 million satellites, looking at pictures, and that only tells part of the story, or the missile tests only tell part of the story. And there's definitely a lot more that have to do with the socioeconomic elements within the country that kind of get left out of the questions in the talks when we're talking about denuclearization and all that. So we kind of try to figure out ways to bring that more into the center and all of that. And thankfully, SAIS gave us a grant to do what we do full time for the moment, at least. And hopefully we can continue to grow it in the future.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ross. I wanted to ask Uzoshi to pick up this question as well as to how he's addressing the global in his current position. Explain your the fact that it's not your definite career that you are doing right now, Uzoshi.
Yes, thank you for having me, everyone. Yes, currently I am an English instructor in Taiwan, and the global focus that I am incorporating currently is not just teaching English, but sharing with my students, as was mentioned, that there are different cultures to American society or around the world, and we can kind of bridge the gap between one another to communicate better, understand each other more, which I feel is an important aspect of what's going on right now in the world. I use this platform or this opportunity to enhance the relationships, the cultural sensitivity, the global awareness of having someone who's not familiar in that part of the world, who can create a positive environment around language like English, and can share with one another our experiences, things that we have in common, things that might be a little different, and but we're all human, and we can all learn something from one another. So although it's not my my full career currently, I'm still happy to have the opportunity to be able to do this and educate my Taiwanese students just on the broader aspect of what I'm doing here. My purpose is not just to share English, but also to share an experience that we won't ever forget as well. And we can use this as a guide to enhance what we're doing later in life. I think that's what the purpose I'm doing right now.
Thank you, Zoshi, and I really particularly appreciate the fact that this mission of yours that you're doing while teaching English in Taiwan, as we all working towards creating diversity, equity, and inclusion. I know that Stony Brook is pretty big about trying to do that right now, and you are kind of ambassador to us doing that abroad. I think it's very timely and complementary, so this is great. In the case of Metasim, you are in law school right now, but I'm sure you're still addressing the global in what you're doing right now. Could you please share that with us?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. So as Dr. mentioned, I'm in law school right now. So there are a lot of opportunities actually to have global reach while you're in law school. I think people kind of assume that, you know, you're going to go into something like big law or contracts, but there are a lot of opportunities, something like doing policy work, which is what I've been working on for the past 3 years. My family background is from Bangladesh, so there's not a lot of focus on relations between the US and Bangladesh. And I think I was put in a position where I can really work towards that because of my background. So that's how I've been working. So I reach out with, or I work with organizations, the Center for International Development in Albany, or other organizations where we kind of work to bring awareness to countries that aren't necessarily given that attention.
Thank you, Metasim. Thank you. I want to ask all three of you, at what time in your course of studies, when you were at Stony Brook, did you decide to take a global turn? Can you please give one or two specific examples of instances when you made it your mission, or was it a mission or a path that you delineated over time? Ross?
Yeah, I was actually a transfer student to Stony Brook. I spent my first year and a half at Queens College.
Oh.
Queens. And it was there that I took an international politics course, and I was a political science major, and I didn't really know anything about international politics, and I just fell in love with it. But Queens at the time actually didn't really have that many great study abroad opportunities. And I actually was already planning to transfer to Stony Brook. That's where my brother attended, and he didn't know what he wanted to do when he went into college, but ended up getting a great teaching job after college. And I always looked up to him, and he became successful after college. So I always felt I should go back to Stony Brook, and Stony Brook happened to have even more international relations courses and even more study abroad opportunities. And it was, I think, really, I met Jen like almost immediately, Jen Green, when I transferred, and they had this new study abroad program to like Russia. And I went that summer, right after I started in the spring. And then that summer I went to Russia, summer 2011. And I almost got arrested at a protest. It was like a journalism program. And we were like trying to just write reports on society and what we were, Jen Green saying shit to like the chat, I just saw it. But yeah, no, we were just writing journalism pieces, writing about what society, what we're seeing in our time in St. Petersburg that summer. And me and another classmate, we heard about a big protest or small protest happening in Moscow. And we went down and just covered it as journalists. And I remember meeting a Reuters journalist who said, yeah, or maybe it's Associated Press, but he said at the time, yeah, my wife just called. She asked me if I was arrested yet, and when I'll be released from jail to go back and eat dinner. And it was like that journalist's job, like he expected to cover this low-key protest, expected to go to jail for doing his job of just reporting the truth, to write 2 sentences that will end up in the back of the New York Times the next day. And I think that just moment like really had a profound impact on me of like, it's not just what we learn in class, but this is the real thing like happening right in front of me. Lo and behold, just a few months later after that, in I think it was December 2011, it was like the biggest protests in Russia at the time since the collapse of the Soviet Union. And I was at one of those small protests right before that, those few months prior, that were just building up gradually, and just seeing the civic activism like was a completely different picture there, where if you spoke up, you expected to get arrested and go to court, get detained. And it really just made me have put human rights, like I love studying human rights issues, but then seeing it in person, I think just like made me want to pursue more of a career in that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. So it was gradual and through many instances with your 3 different experiences abroad, it looks like. What about you, Zoshi? Did you have a eureka moment during your studies at Stony Brook in Africana Studies and in Asian and Asian American Studies?
Actually, I would say that the process or the global turn was also gradual, but it was preemptive. And I mean that I was always fascinated by Asia and Asian studies, or that part of the world. When I was growing up as a child, I would always be fascinated through language or through martial arts or through some aspect of incorporating this idea of maybe one day I'll study, or I'll go work, or I'll travel or visit that part of the world. And it was actually through opportunities like studying abroad and working with, Jen Green, just to kind of put that dream into reality. And studying abroad really helped me have more of a focus of where I would want to go and what I would want to do. And just having that ability to see another part of the world instead of imagining it, it definitely made me more encouraged and to sit down and really do it, and to plan out a possible opportunity or career, or to follow other opportunities to get there, which is where I am right now.
Thank you, Zoshi. So it looks like it's a combination of a lot of things, and that's why I love the fact that at Stony Brook, the global is really everywhere, and you have to just make sure you make full use of all the opportunities that you have. And if you combine them all, then you can go very far. And our enterprise here at GLI in globalization studies is precisely to take advantage of all these opportunities and put all these forces together in order to get there. I'm very pleased to see that Pascal Jones from Study Abroad is on our call. I invited them, of course, but I know that we made the publicity of Study Abroad a little earlier during our introduction, and I left it to Jen Green to speak on your behalf. But if anybody later on has some very specific question about Study Abroad, well, Pascal Jones is here and she'll be happy to answer you. And I want to say that GLI also is working closely with or intends to work very closely with Study Abroad. We had a hiatus because of I don't need to say the COVID crisis that put everything on hold in terms of travels, but as I explained to the audience before, study abroad or internship and externships are part of the degree. And so Pascal and I had already engaged in discussions on trying to identify a very specific program abroad to address the needs of our students in globalization. So let me now go to Metasim and then ask her to answer this question about the eureka moment, or rather this gradual progression towards the global.
I would say that mine was also a gradual growing interest growing up. I went to Bangladesh for the first time in 2004, and it was my first time out of the country. And just seeing the stark difference between how we were living here versus how, my people of my culture were living it really hit me as a child. And, I think back then I couldn't really understand what human rights were and what could be done. And I think growing up, I slowly started doing more research and looking into it more and seeing, I started to see it's not just Bangladesh, there are many people out there who are suffering and are victims of human rights violations. So when I was at Stony Brook, I was actually in the middle of applying to MD, JD joint degree programs. And I took a course with Professor Spitzer. It was Women in U.S. Asian Relations. And I think that really solidified it for me, where I, felt that with my skill set, I think I would be good in this sort of position. And that class really had more of an effect on me than I thought it was going to. So that was probably the moment where I decided, I really want to do some sort of international human rights work.
Thank you, Metasim. I'm really glad to hear that Professor Spitzer was a source of inspiration for you, because as you may not know, Dr. Spitzer happens to be the interim undergraduate director for the GLI program this semester, while our permanent one is on sabbatical, and she's a terrific asset to our program, because her training is in international relations. Yes. But she also happens to be an expert in Asian culture. She was teaching previously for Asian and Asian American. She's now teaching also for the program in writing and rhetoric. She is multi-talented, and then this is just goes to show you how how resourceful people in our field have to be, because we are open to so many different disciplines and cultures. So I'm really glad to, and I'm not surprised, but I'm really glad to hear that she was a source of inspiration to you. I know Uzoshi had her as well as an instructor. So to Ross and Uzoshi now, I would like to ask, how did your respective undergraduate degrees, so for Ross, history and political science, and for Uzoshi, African studies and Asian American studies, prepare you for that turn and for your current job overseas? Can you please give us concrete examples of what you learned in your classes here at Stony Brook in those fields that resonated later in what you're doing? Russ, would you like to start?
Yeah, sorry. There there's a lot of courses at Stony Brook that have to do with international history, international politics, international economics, and I recommend taking them and using this new focus that Stony Brook has. I wish that they had this new focus when I was a student, master's or undergrad. It's a wonderful thing, and because the courses are there. I remember some of my favorite courses were actually history courses. I was one course away from, I think, being a Latin American history focus, one class away from being an American history focus, and I ended up thinking just by design ended up being a European history focus, and I took Asian history as well. You just take anything you're interested in. There's so much stuff out there, but I really love this course, the History of America's Diplomacy, and it's a 3-part course. I don't know if it's still offered. And oh my God, I'm being put on the spot here, so I cannot remember my favorite professor's name. So if this is recorded, do not share it with him.
Was it a he or a she?
He was the director of the history department for a long time. Distinguished professor. I don't know if he's Michael Barnard.
Barnard,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know if he had released his book yet, but he's been writing this book for years. It goes in the history of America's foreign relations from way before the establishment of the United States, but goes into U.S. and tribal relations and all that. He kind of takes you through the history, but not just through the history. He was the first history professor that I had that really taught me a frame of thinking that applied to me way after undergrad and applied to me in graduate school and my real life as well, and my work, whether it was in lobbying in Washington or my current research, which is he would really dig into primary sources, make us read documents, make us read cables, who held what position at what time in government or what organization, what were their stances at the time, and really understand how policies ended up becoming the way that they were. It's amazing how much time, how many times policies are the results of how different leaders at the time interacted, and different organizations or different movements and groups come together. And he was all about making us read those primary source documents and really understanding all perspectives as much as possible. And that's really important because it's really difficult to affect change without understanding those internal political dynamics in so many other settings. I remember when I graduated Stony Brook, my first job was I was lobbying, worked for a government affairs organization, worked for the government affairs department of the National Association of Letter Carriers, which is a union that represents all the mailmen, mailwomen across the United States. And one thing we worked on was postal reform, something that still hasn't happened, even though it's 8 years later from when I was working there. But we are constantly working with members of Congress, working with their staffers, working with letter carriers, to talk to their members of Congress in their home districts, talking to them in Washington, trying to build up coalitions to gather support behind legislation and actually enact policy and law is completely different from an idea of a policy or a law. There's some great ideas and policies that have been around a long time and anything that just have never been enacted. And a lot of that's just dynamics of what's going on at the moment. And we can't understand that unless we talk and read where people stand on issues. So definitely that course, with those courses with the history department of reading primary source documents and understanding perspectives, personally for me, that really helped me long after I graduated.
Well, this is great publicity for the Department of History here, and I can understand from what you just described why you decided to double major in history and political science, because of the synergy between the two disciplines. And that's exactly what also we do at GLI, where we have representative of all these different departments working together to inform students who want to work for the global, because you cannot separate these things. You can only get better information if you proceed by, through connections and interdisciplinarity. So what about you, Zoshi? Can you answer this question as well, as to at what time you decided to go global?
Yes, actually having the double major of African studies and Asian American studies, that was kind of my my reason as well.
Yes.
To put these two disciplines and regions of the world together under a scope, and to see how they connected with one another, not only historically, but contemporary right now. And actually courses from Dr. Spitzer and in the Asian American studies, courses like Introduction to Asia and learning about the different cultures and languages of that part of the world and her connection to East Asia. She focused on Chinese, and she was able to, she speaks Chinese as well. So that kind of also influenced me to have this global turn. And courses like in the African Studies department, I was able to work with distinguished professors such as Dr. Shalema Skulema. I was his TA, under the teaching practicum. And I was able to work with him and see how he organizes his curriculum to assist in the classroom. And that kind of prepared me for my English instruction as well, of how to build a curriculum and how to educate others, how to inspire others with what you're teaching, what you're talking about. And also with Dr. Abina Asade,
Yes.
independent study, I was able to build my own curriculum as well and see what topics or books I wanted to research and read. And again, influencing the connection between these two worlds and seeing how I can connect in the classroom with my students in the global turn as well of educating. Again, it's not just English, but it's also a global scope that I'm trying to have my students understand. So I think it was these two disciplines that also kind of were the driving force to enable me to be in the position that I am right now.
Thank you, Zoshi, and I'm noted to faculty that you just mentioned, and I want to tell the audience that Shimeli Skulema happens to be on the Globalization Studies Advisory Board, precisely representing the Department of Africana Studies. To Ross and Zoshi again. I'm sorry. Now I want to ask a slightly different question to Meta Seam. How do you think your respective undergraduate degree in Asian and Asian American Studies prepared you for the global career that you have chosen for yourself, which is international human rights lawyer? Can you please show the intellectual connection you were able to make?
Sure. So for me personally, what I think is a very important trait for any international work is cultural competency. I think being able to understand and be on the same page as the people you're working with really does make a difference. It really matters. So at Stony Brook, when I switched to AAS major, I ended up taking a lot of history of ex-Asian country courses.
Right.
And I think that really helped me. Although I grew up here, I grew up with a knowledge of Bangladeshi history because of my parents. And taking courses from other Asian countries really helped me connect because of a lot of the similarities there are between the culture, the history, and it really prepared me for a lot of different opportunities that came up. One such opportunity is that one of my professors, who asked not to be named, actually connected me to a law firm in Korea because they have a lot of Bangladeshi migrants in Korea. And she felt that as a student of Korean language and knowing Bangla, that I'd be able to connect the two. So it was about 2 summers ago, I helped them with some legal work. And that only happened because I took the Korean language courses and I met that professor at Stony Brook, and I was able to help in like a very specific niche. Like Bangla-Korean relations is not very mainstream. So those experiences at Stony Brook really did help shape the opportunities that came for me post-graduation.
Thank you, Metis. And I'm glad to see that in your cases, all three, you were able to make your own connections, but at the same time, you did get some occasional support, but tremendous support and very significant support from faculty that you happened to run into just because you were taking their courses. So there is a degree of randomness there that made you who you are now. To Ross, I want to ask you what your next step is professionally.
I guess it's continuing to do what I do now.
To grow your project.
Grow it, and if they keep giving us, if we keep earning and these grant applications go through, we can keep this going longer. That the better. And if the grants don't come through, then the good thing is the project will still continue, just in a more limited scope, and do this more part-time and follow still just my passions, which is international relations and public service, whether it's with government or nonprofit work. I think just my general direction I will always continue to be.
Thank you. What about you, Zoshi? What's the next step for you professionally?
That's also a great question, and it's still under consideration. I have other options. I have options that I'm considering. For example, continuing teaching in Taiwan, firstly. That's something that I'm really passionate about doing. Another would be to receive a master's degree in Taiwan while I'm here. Also, possibly work in the foreign service at some point, or consider that. The options are limitless. I just have to really decide what's best for me and the direction that I want to take it. But currently, I love what I'm doing now. And I did fail to mention my undergraduate degree, having Asian and Asian American Studies as my major. I was able to go study abroad, which I mentioned, but apply that to my degree. And that was also the opportunity that led me to do that. I was essentially going to travel to a part of the world that I really wanted to when I was young, but I was able to complete a requirement for my major and to do that. But currently, I think I just want to continue teaching and sharing my experiences with the Taiwanese youth here.
Well, it looks like you're doing a great job at it, because Fulbright asked you to do it at second year, which is very rare, and perhaps even a third year. So we heard at the beginning.
Perhaps, but thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. And Metasim, in your case, you're preparing for a career with an international impact. How do you see your career as an international human rights lawyer addressing the global from the local, if I may say it like this? So would you emphasize first the utility of foreign policies or people like you in the international legal field to address global issues?
Like I said earlier, I think cultural competency is very, very important in international work. And I think with people like me, people who are educated in multicultural matters and just have interests in multiple countries and languages, it's really effective in building those relationships between countries. So, you can spread awareness about matters that might not catch the news, or, smaller nations. I feel like personally, I don't see a lot of news about Central Asia. But as someone who works in the international field, I see people who are working towards those goals of bringing those matters to attention. And I think people like me, I think bridging that gap between and understanding the differences and why certain matters might be contentious is really helpful, and it's really good. And, we just need more representation.
Yes, representation is really it, I think. Thank you. To all of you, I would like to ask if you could name a few assets that your academic studies in the humanities and social sciences, that is not based on field practice, gave you, and which are making a difference in your professional vision or practice for the two of you who already work. And for Metasim, if you can describe the skills that you have been able to develop in your studies that will come in handy in practicing your future career. Let's proceed in the usual order then, Russ.
Sorry. I don't like to speak if I'm not asked.
What is it that makes you unique? Because of the fact that you studied what you studied, that is history and political science, that makes you a slightly maybe different person.
I think it's a great question. For me, this assets and skills I learned from studying history, or just being the humanities in general, really. You could be studying anything. Writing, one, critical thinking, two, not necessarily in order. Communication's everything. If you can't write well in any setting, whether it's business or nonprofit or government, you gotta listen. Life seems like it's memos when you're working internally, and externally it's op-eds and pieces. And if it's not written well, people lose interest really fast, unfortunately, even if the ideas are amazing. So one thing I've always tried to improve upon ever since undergrad, and I think grad school even helped me even more. I found one professor in grad school who focused on just writing in the policy sense, which is just figuring out a way to capture the attention of the reader and really bring them into the impactful stuff that will hopefully change people's minds about certain issues. And in terms of critical thinking, I think this one, I remember at my graduation ceremony for history, the history department at the time, the speaker was talking about how, yeah, there's a big call in the United States. We need more tech, we need more engineering, we need more science and math, and we're not doing good enough. People need to stop studying history and political science and all that kind of stuff. It's completely wrong. And the reason it's completely wrong is because a math equation is a math equation at the end of the day, right? There are set standards in science, and it's great, but political science and history and humanities, they really teach you how to think deeper, question the authority, and critically think. I know that's a really broad thing, but if we don't learn to question and we don't learn to challenge authority in any way, then nothing's going to change in anything. And the humanities is the field that uses science, by the way, the scientific method in the research, to challenge authority. And that's everything. So if you can learn ways to think critically, willing to challenge, willing to question why things they are the way they are, how could they be better, how could they be worse, and then figure out how to write well with it and communicate verbally as well as even an added bonus, then you're good in any profession that you'll go into, no matter it's business or government or whatever.
Yes, thank you. What about for you, Usoshi and Metasim?
Just kind of piggybacking off of what Ross said. I think he makes an excellent point of the writing skill ability and the critical thinking. These are two areas where you can just benefit a lot from in the humanities and social sciences department. What Metasim alluded to before was that the cultural competency, I think also, and the awareness and sensitivity, cultural sensitivity too. When I was in these disciplines, I was able to broaden my own mind and to think more critically about what connections can I make, creativity of having the connections to put together. And I think those are tremendous assets that even help me to this day. Having, again, two very seemingly different disciplines, Africana studies and Asian American studies, but you realize that there's a lot of similarities between the two, and there's a lot of things that you can apply even now that I learned in SBU in Stony Brook. So I think those are tremendously good. The writing, you definitely need to do that, and communication. something that I'm in my profession or in my current opportunity, I'm always communicating. So it's the way in which we communicate. It's how we are sensitive to others' cultures and other people. I think this is a huge asset that we can still
Yes, thank you, Zoshi. I wanted to, this was going to be a next question. What interpersonal skills do you need? Or in general, you already answered those questions, whether it be Ross or yourself, as to the importance of communications, whether it be in writing or verbally. So what about you, Metasim? What are the assets that you feel like you bring in?
So I definitely echo what Ross and Uzoshi said about writing, critical thinking, cultural competency. They're all very important, but I noticed Ms. Green's comment about research, so I think I'll talk about that too. I think, you can always get better at research. There's no, you can always improve at it. And I think going through AAS, it was very helpful because, you learn different ways to research and how to implement that research in different types of writing. Because, you can write for one person and you have to write totally different for another person. They expect different types of research. And I think being able to work on that skill was extremely helpful, particularly for me in law school too, because it's the same thing. You have to research a certain way for certain bosses, for certain professors, and then the next person you go to is going to expect something very different. And I think having learned different ways of doing that at Stony Brook, I wasn't thrown off when I started law school. I noticed a lot of my colleagues didn't know. They only knew how to Google things, and they didn't know about all these different ways to research. But at Stony Brook, I learned those skills, and I'm very thankful for having that.
Well, Stony Brook is a research university, so we're very strongly treated in research in every single field. And I think that the humanities and the social sciences are very good at teaching you these skills.
Yes.
So that's the best preparation. Now, to all three of you, I want to ask you, if you were to do this again, would you choose the same academic route? Or, and also I would like to know, although Ross already mentioned it before, could you have benefited from a more direct path, like, for instance, the GLI undergraduate degree, so the Globalization Studies and International Relation BA, or the Globalization focus on your respective MA? Could you please tell the students how easier or more direct this could have been for you, or if you encountered challenges in proceeding the way you did? Metasim, you're in front of me, so why don't you just start this time?
So me personally, first off, I want to say I'm very thankful that I went through AAS, because I started with a health science major, and because of an administrative error, I would have had to stay an extra year. So I decided I don't want to stay the extra year. I'll just complete the AAS major because I have most of the classes done. And it ended up being the really, really good decision. I'm very thankful for the professors I had. So I wouldn't necessarily replace that experience, but I think I would have extremely benefited from something very direct like GLI. Specified knowledge and experiences really are helpful in the international field. There are a lot of positions where they expect you to have specialized knowledge and have that experience. And I think through a program like GLI, it's very helpful, and it would benefit those who choose to study it.
Yeah, and thank you, Metasim. And I really didn't mean to imply that GLI should replace the the discipline at all. No, what I meant to say is precisely, now with the GLI MA focus, for instance, with which 6 departments within the College of Arts and Sciences are participating in, this combination of forces would probably make this transition easier. It's about joining forces and not replacing, of course. So, Russ.
Don't worry, I didn't take it that way.
No, not at all. But for our audience, I want to say that it's about precisely connecting the dots And that's what we're trying to do here, and enhancing precisely those disciplines, by making them even more marketable, showing that people like you who started by doing what they love to do, like Asian and Asian American studies or Africana studies or history or political science, and wanting in a global profession, how you went from point A to point B, and with a little extra help, you can get there and make the most of it. Very quickly, because we don't have a lot of time for the general Q&A, so I want to hear from Uzoshi quickly and Russ quickly about your your path if you were to do it again, and maybe how more direct it could have been if you could have added a little a GLI edge to it.
Absolutely, very simple. I definitely would have loved to have the GLI when I was in Stony Brook. It would have definitely enhanced my the globalization focus, or what I'm learning, connecting the dots, which I was doing on my own, so to speak, through these two different disciplines. So
exactly, in your case, the three of you did it on your own. You had to be very resourceful that way,
right?
And run into Jen and absolutely.
So it would have definitely.
Yeah, and I think Russ, you already responded that, unless you want to add something.
Yeah, no, just the fact that GLI is centralizing everything to make all these resources more easy to access, I think is a wonderful thing. Just I want to piggyback one thing what Azoshi said before about his communication skills and he's developing and benefiting from teaching in Taiwan as somebody who's also taught in Taiwan from the Fulbright program. If you can teach foreign language to like third graders in Taiwan, you can communicate anything. And just, go to Jen, apply for Fulbright, and try and the ETA work. You can learn a lot of great communication skills from it. Like, it will benefit you for the rest of your life, no matter what you do.
Yes, the teaching profession does that to you. Yes, thank you, and also thank you for giving me a wonderful image or expression of GLI centralizing, the effort in the learning of the global, because that's exactly what we're doing. Being interdisciplinary, we capitalize on the existing forces that are there on our campus in the multiple wonderful departments that we have, especially in the College of Arts and Sciences. So finally, before we open the floor to the general public, I want to ask you, our three panelists, to give an advice. What is the advice that you would like to convey to our students, whether GLI or from your home departments, and all the students contemplating enrolling in a master's program in history, Africana, Asian and Asian American, Italian, French, English, Hispanic, what words of encouragement would you give them if they want to pursue an international career? How would they best prepare for this transition to area-specific disciplines to the global? Just so in a few words. Ross, you're in front of me, so go ahead.
Language learning is a huge help.
Yes.
At different points, I've learned Mandarin and Korean and Italian too in high school. And I spent my first year, my grad program in Italy, where that year later came and actually helped out. But yeah, just learning languages certainly helps a lot for the interpersonal element, but really don't be afraid to go out there and apply for these internships and opportunities out there. Really, when I got into SAIS, I honestly thought it was going to be like all these people who were like way smarter than me, who were like came from their Harvards and their Georgetowns and their Yales. And honestly, I was continually surprised how well Stony Brook prepared me to be at the same level or better every time. Like, I was never afraid or ever felt disadvantaged at any point from Stony Brook's education. And I think there just needs to be more Stony Brook students out there to shine and show that, really, because really, like, from Fulbright to State Department, I know there's Foreign Service officers there now, from Stony Brook to the government. I mean, this New York State Assembly Speaker is Stony Brook grad. Like, they're making impacts out there, and you don't need Harvard, Yale, or Georgetown to compete at a high level.
It is really terrific to hear us. We're really happy. We know we have terrific faculty and students here at Stony Brook, but hearing it from somebody who's from the outside now is good confirmation. What about you, Uzoshi? What advice, if any?
Yes, definitely what Ross said. Language learning, take advantage of these study abroad opportunities, or talk to Jen Green. Get involved.
She's the go-to person.
She's the go-to. She influenced me and she helped me to be where I am, and I always thank her for that, because without her help, without her guidance and the faculty, the amazing faculty that we have at Stony Brook, I wouldn't be here. So I thank all of them, all my professors, Jen Green, everyone. Even now, I'm just blessed to be in this position because I took advantage of it. I didn't wait.
Of course,
I
yeah.
waited too long. I almost waited.
But you deserved it. And the good thing is that because you deserved it and you had somebody competent to help you enjoy it, that happened. It takes, two strength. What about you, Metasim? And then we'll leave it there for the panel itself.
I definitely echo what Ross and Uzoshi said. You should really, really try to take advantage of the opportunities that are presented to you. And this is coming from someone who didn't take advantage of a lot of things in college. I guess, when you're young, you kind of think, I have a lot of time to do this, and, I'll do it later, I'll do it after college, but do it when you can. Like, when the opportunity comes, you should totally just do it. Now I'm at a point where my options are a lot more limited. So I always think back on it. I should have done this. I should have done that. Mostly, like, I'm always thinking I should have just done a study abroad when I was in college. That was the time to do it. When I start working, who knows if I'll be able to do something like that. And also, don't be afraid to reach out and ask questions. I think there's some people get afraid, to reach out to the people who are part of programs, but ask them questions. Like, in my experience, everyone's been very helpful. They'll ask you questions, and they can also point you in the right direction. Different resources that you might not know of. And it's just really good for you. You never know what you're going to find. You could change your interests very quickly from some information you've gained through speaking to the people in the department. So definitely reach out and don't be afraid to talk to them, air your concerns. And, Stony Brook is there to help.
Thank you, Metasim. And in the on the question of reaching out, we have a participant here, Chelsea, who's asking if the panel would mind sharing contact or connect information. So I don't know if any of you would mind if we share your information or go through us to connect you with the people who may have some specific question. You can let us know later. We can be the conduit. I can be the conduit if you'd like. So I would like to now open the floor to the question that the audience may have. And we can take them verbally. If you you can speak up at this point. I don't think it's going to be chaotic if we proceed that way, or you can throw them in the chat box as you wish. Who would like to ask a question to our panelists or anyone else from the Stony Brook community who's attending this call?
Okay, Sophie, there is a question in the chat box from Demi. I will read it aloud.
Yes, please.
What are some things that you had to factor in before deciding to pursue the career you're in now? What are some things that you had to factor in before deciding to pursue the career you're in now?
Should we ask any of the three? Anyone?
I would direct it to Ross first.
That's a great question. Personal level, I think honestly, family and finance, nonprofit work doesn't pay a lot, or And family-wise, like I spent like 3 years outside the United States in a row, basically being like not seeing family, and it sucked. That part did. And like my family doesn't really travel a lot. Like I wasn't able to really leave the United States a lot before I went to college. So that's definitely hard. And then of course, like graduate school costs a lot of money. Like there are scholarships out there, and I do recommend searching for them. Like I know the Department of Education at Foreign Language Area Studies scholarship that helped me some with my tuition in grad school and all that. But like, it's a big financial commitment. And there's also nothing wrong with doing a master's degree at Stony Brook because it's way more affordable and you still get the same education at the end of the day. So like, and there's just so many opportunities out there. But just be prepared that like government and nonprofits, they don't pay a lot, and going abroad, it's going to be tougher to be family and all that.
Thank you. And while Jean-Philippe is getting ready to prepare his response, let me add that all the programs that Jen has referred you to come with some type of stipend or financial support. So by doing these activities before you graduate, you are defraying your long-term costs. Uzuchi?
Yes, thank you. That's exactly what happened. Just using the scholarships, taking advantage of those to alleviate the costs, the high costs of going and traveling or to be abroad, go abroad. And again, like what Ross said, yeah, the families, relationships, you can't, they are stringent depending if you've been away for a while. Culture shock too, not being prepared mentally for where you are going or what career you will choose if it's international. These are things you have to be aware of too. I was prepared to be here now because of my experiences and what I did by researching and being a part of, like I said, these opportunities to go there beforehand. So that was kind of the factors that I had in mind. But just being flexible, being open-minded and adjusting yourself, not being afraid to take the leap and to do that. Do it while you can and do it now.
Tazim, what would you like to contribute?
For me, also, family was a huge factor. I think I really struggled with trying to make the decision of should I stay near my family, should I go far while I can and then come back later. But I think ultimately what I took into consideration was, will I wake up excited to go to work in this field? Am I gonna dread going to work? You always hear about it, people are like, oh no, I have to go to work tomorrow. But I didn't want to feel that way. I wanted to feel very happy to get up and like very excited to go about my day. And I think I took that into like very big consideration, and I wanted that to be something where, I want to be passionate about what I do and really love it. And I felt that with those feelings, then I could do a better job. So that's what I considered most.
Great, thank you for that. There is another question in the chat box, and this is from Raymond Janis. How has the pandemic affected competition for international careers? Let's start with Uzushi. How has the pandemic affected competition for international careers?
I could only speak to my experience. The pandemic has definitely, especially for Taiwan, there's an increase to have foreign teachers because of their goal. Taiwan is implementing or has already implemented a bilingual objective for 2030. They would like to be a bilingual nation. And even still during this crisis, they are under, again, certain rules and regulations, but they're still enforcing this policy of having teachers who are native speakers of English or to come to Taiwan and to teach and to educate the youth. So that's what I can see there is an influx of more and more teachers, but it's probably becoming more and more competitive as well, possibly.
It's definitely really competitive right now. There's a lot of people who are going into grad school right now because of the pandemic, a lot of people who are already just graduating during the pandemic. So the labor pool is really tight at the moment, but that doesn't mean you can't shine. It doesn't mean you can't shine. Like I've had some friends, to be honest, I graduated in 2019 and I had friends that literally applied nonstop. It took them like a year, but they found what they wanted at the end of the day, which was important. But and some people found it within a month, and some people I know graduated in 2020, and during this pandemic, we're able to find stuff almost immediately. And I know I recently heard that one of our research assistants who's graduating in 2021 just found a job. It really, if you just network and really get out there, I know it's broad, but specifically to network, go out there and get these internships and these professional connections. I really think but everything that those personal professional connections you'll make will help you in the long run and in the short run too, because a job application is just a resume that they're siphoning through. Companies especially are putting these through algorithms that are reading your resume. The people aren't even reading your resume to then be read. So definitely developing professional connections that can be developed through networking specifically towards the internships and the work. It is really it's so important right now.
I think as far as competition in the legal field, it has gotten more competitive. Already international careers within the legal field was already very limited. For those of you who don't know, last year, because of the pandemic, the bar exam was pushed from July to October. And I think that caused a lot of issues as far as the job cycle. So what is happening right now is a lot of the people that would have normally been recruited in the summer, the July period, they're getting grouped in with the people who took the bar exam in February. So it's kind of like each group is kind of backlogged now. So you just have more people applying for the same amount of limited positions. But as Ross mentioned, don't let it be a deterrent. It is more competitive, but still try. You should always just still try for it.
Can I ask a quick question of Ross? Because I think something that y'all are kind of getting at is keep the faith, but I think it's also important to think of different options, right? And to be a little flexible. Maybe you get into one thing and then sidestep later to something that's of more interest, right? Ross, I have a lot of students interested in the Foreign Service, and word on the street is that there's a hiring freeze. And really the only way I think you can get into the Foreign Service right now, or the only surefire way, is through one of those diplomatic fellowships. Is that in fact the case?
I've talked to a diplomat about this not that long ago, who is a diplomat in residence, who goes around to the schools and gets people to apply. They said you are statistically more likely to get into the Foreign Service through those fellowships than the actual Foreign Service process. It is statistically harder to take the exam and get through. I mean, I've taken it, haven't gotten through, I'm honest about it. I've made it.
Same.
Passed those first rounds easily. I mean, test is easy, but that final round to get to it, it's thousands upon thousands of applications of essays of very similar people, and it's really hard to ring through. Actually, a former Stony Brook classmate of mine, who's still one of my best friends, he actually just got in to that final round this summer. He's going to be taking it sometime. Actually, he got to that final round, and they told him that they don't know when he's there actually to interview him because there's a backlog of hiring.
Yes. So
they said summer, but it could be fall for all he knows. I actually went to China with him in Stony Brook. It's a Wuhan, and yeah, he's.
Well, and I bring this up not to discourage folks. It's really you want to have a plan A, B, C, D, and I was reviewing for an award at the national level lately, and they were really encouraged students don't just think about the Department of State, think about the Department of Defense. Like, these are all areas where they need folks with backgrounds like, the ones that you all have or are going to have. It's just everybody really hones in on the foreign service. There's a lot of different ways to get involved with government service. So yeah, Ross, I had a secret agenda. I mean, and the fellowships are hard to get, and they're saying statistically that's your best chance to get into the foreign service right now. So think big picture, and take advantage of folks like the panelists here who, might have a little bit of a sense of the landscape and come up with the B, C, D, E, and F plans.
To your effect, by the way, for government, there's other ways, as you said, there's other ways like this. I know when I was in graduate school, a lot of people applied for the Presidential Management Fellowship. That will give you 2 years of government service and can lead to a State Department job or Department of Defense job. Basically, like a leadership training program in government, and it sets you up for a career in government. For a lot of people interested in international relations, I would intern work at State Department. How many civil service officers there are at the State Department who aren't for foreign service and are specialists in their field for different countries. But a lot of them, interestingly enough, they didn't go straight to the State Department. They actually got rooted to the State Department through the Department of Defense. There's a lot more jobs in international relations there. Even the Department of Labor, Department of Commerce, Department of Agriculture, they all have international relations departments. And a lot of people made it to the civil service side of the State Department through those other jobs in those other departments. Because if you go to the USA Jobs website, you'll see a lot of civil service jobs. They're only open to people already in government. And you're like, how can I apply for the State Department when, like, they only accept people who are already in the State Department, already within the US government. But if you look at the other departments of government, they actually have international relations related jobs that will get you eventually probably to the State Department.
Thank you very much, Russ. Very good tips indeed. It's 2:32. We can go over just a few more minutes because there is a question that we haven't addressed in the chat room from Demi. What are some unique qualities in terms of research of the work you are in or pursuing that others wouldn't know unless they're in the same position as well? And I think, Demi, you also asked a previous question that I was going to pick up earlier, unless this is the same one. But let's go with this one. Who wants to answer it? Ross? Did you hear the question?
Yeah. I'm just rereading the question real quick in the chat.
Yes, it's in the chat. Yes, it's the last question.
Yeah, what are some unique qualities of the work you're in? Okay, yeah. So unique research qualities of the work we're in pursuing that others wouldn't know. Okay. Like, it's just a lot of weird stuff, I guess, just a more administrative side stuff. That's really weird with all this. But I don't know how to answer it in a great way, but there's just honestly a lot of hoopla in every profession there is. So I think when you go into research, yeah, you're going to be doing the research and of course doing the writing and doing what you want to do. But there's always going to be other R factors and political administrative stuff that you're going to have to navigate in any position. So just always be prepared for that. When I graduated and I was working for a legislative department, I was not expecting, I thought my view of the world and learning about Congress and stuff in college was that everyone comes together and works and everyone is happy and they're all trying to do the best thing for society and all that. But that view of the world kind of was crushed really fast. There's a lot of great people, great activists doing great work. And it's not surprising at the same time why a lot of policies get done. And that is all like interpersonal stuff, that is ideological stuff, and just navigating interpersonal politics. And that could be in a company, that could be in Congress, that can be in an HR.
That's called diplomacy.
Diplomacy.
As an interpersonal skill.
Yeah, conflict management is the right word, I would say, at the end of the day, because
yes,
conflict is everywhere. It's not just between countries, it's between people, it's between families, it's everything. And that study, by the way, I highly recommend taking courses on that at Stony Brook. Is really fascinating because the social science aspect of that applies not just at the personal level, but at the international level as well.
Well, I'm happy to hear this because we offer as a core course for GLI, a conflict resolution course, which we are going to be offering next spring in 22 for the first time with great anticipation. And we're currently working on a draft for an MA in GLI, and for which I'm thinking about a course on crisis, risk and crisis negotiation or management, precisely. So I'm glad you're saying that it's at every single level that we need to be able to navigate these problems. Metasim and Uzoshi, do you want to add something to this? And then we'll conclude here. I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. Can you unmute yourself if you want to talk, Uzoshi or Metasim?
Yeah, I think with something with research that I think people don't really associate with all the time is that it's an ongoing process. Like, it's not that you've researched one thing and then you're done. Like, you always need to look into it. And like Ross said, there are a lot of administrative things that you wouldn't anticipate until you're actually in the position. So you could have a research project that's a month long. For that whole month, you have to continuously update yourself on the topic. Something could change, from one day to the next. So, you have to be on your toes a little bit. And definitely what Ross said is, you want to assume that, you want to give the benefit of the doubt, everyone's working together, but also, you want to be neutral about it. So assume that you're working together, but also work for your goal. But don't try to be underhanded. I know it happens sometimes that, it seems like that's the best method, being aggressive towards something or being, in trying to be firm, but try to be as diplomatic as possible and as unbiased as possible and maintain good relationships, because these are people you're going to be working with for a while. So you don't want to be on bad footing with them, and people that you help out will help you out in return.
Very sound advice. Thank you, Medicine. Uzoshi, you want to add something?
Just the interpersonal skills, just to develop those when you're in my case, researching, learning another language and just learning, like Alfreda mentioned in the chat box, you never stop learning or needing to learn something new. And even in my case now, I'm always learning, and I take that not with a grain of salt. I always want to learn something new. I'm always passionate about adding to the skill set that I already have, and the interpersonal skills that I will develop, and social skills, or whatever I need in the future. So just constantly improving, evolving, I think is the key.
Thank you, Uzoshi. And on the topic of language instruction, language learning, language acquisition, this is something you need to acquire while you are at Stony Brook. We offer numerous languages here at Stony Brook. You need to take advantage of them. For the students who are in our GLI program, they know that the requirements are much higher than even the university requirements for obvious reasons. You don't go to study abroad if you don't speak already a little bit of the language. If you want to make the most of your study abroad experience, you need to have started learning the basic of the language and the culture. And that's why all these language instruction departments are here for you and are extremely useful in helping you accomplish what you want to do at the global level. So thank you very much, everyone. Thank you especially to our three panelists for generously sharing your time, your own personal experiences. We hope to stay in touch. You'll let us know if you are okay to follow up perhaps with some of the of the people in the audience who may have more specific questions for you. We thank you for representing Stony Brook so well, so positively, and we wish you great success in all your professional endeavors. To all the others, I want to thank you for your participation, and let me announce another event of interest to perhaps anyone in this call. This time is really from the Institute per se, and less the degree. It's part of our lecture series. I'm going to share the poster with you just now. It is part of our lecture series. It will be the last one of the spring for everybody who is interested in Africana studies or in human rights. I'll be inviting Kamari Clark from UCLA, who's going to be talking about the International Criminal Court and the Pan-Africanist pushback. And it will be co-moderated by someone from the sociology department and someone from political science, one who's an Africanist who was a development worker in Africa, and Juliette Passer from political science, who is an international human rights lawyer, precisely. So it's next Thursday at 4 p.m. You'll be receiving the posters, or stay alert. We are on social media. Please follow us there. And once again, thank you. I wish you a good rest of the afternoon. And to Uzoshi, who is in Taiwan in the middle of the night, thank you for staying awake for us. And good night.